right, we are back with Candice. Now, Candice, in a recent IGTV video, you talked about staying sane during the pandemic. And it kind of reminded me that although extended social isolation is the right thing to do, it isn't a normal or easy thing for a lot of us to do, especially considering that we all have different levels of access to resources and whatnot. And now that we've been on lockdown for over a month in the United States, I think a lot of us are, finally crossing that line of sanity where it's like, okay, what time is it? What day is it? Like, is there even a weekday or a weekend? What's your advice on getting back to your center? Like, should we strive for normalcy, or should we accept that this is the new normal?
Yeah, I was saying the new normal for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I don't think where we were before this pandemic was normal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to say that. I think that we have to make peace with the fact that we are going into a new area that none of us has ever imagined and none of us ever prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, I hope, uproot a lot of systems and make a lot of changes so that things like this don't happen again. I know everyone is so different. So for me, I've been trying to stay consistent. I've been trying to keep a routine, working out every day, just doing things just to keep my mind active, coloring. Of course, I'm watching TV, Netflix, and all the shows, things that make me laugh. Nothing too deep right now, because personally, I'm like, we're going through a lot right now. I just need stuff that makes me laugh. You know what I mean? But the thing is, everyone, like you said, everyone is different. So it's about what you can do to put the smile on your face during this time. And I think people think that everything has to be such a grand gesture. Like, oh, if I'm not able to spend this amount on that, then I'm not worth it or, worthy of anything. And it's like, no, like you have to do what's within your means. And having a bunch of money doesn't solve all the problems in the world. It just actually creates a door of even more problems. So if you're not able to, have Hulu or have Netflix or, have every show that you want at your fingertips, what shows do you have? What do you have that makes you happy? What books do you have that take you to another world? I love to read. Obviously, I love to write, and just, books take you to a whole nother world, and all you need is your mind for that. I'm a big person on what's your favorite food? What can you eat? What can you make that makes you smile, that makes you happy? Little things like that. If you're creative, what can you color? What can you draw? What can you paint? There are just so many things that you think that you can't do, that this is the time now for you to focus on being able to do. So that's what I've been suggesting to anyone that just comes across my way to ask. I first tell them what I'm doing with my exercising and just keeping a routine, waking up at a certain time still, trying to make sure I still eat healthy, air quote, having a day where I just don't think about anything, don't worry about anything, don't watch the news. I definitely think that is a must. You definitely need at least a day or two where you do not plug into anything, you not worry about anything. But within your means, what can you do to keep a smile on your face? And I think that's the most important thing in this time. What can you do to make sure that you laugh, and keep yourself as upbeat and as possible during this time? I think that is the biggest goal for people.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to suggest that to people sometimes, because oftentimes people are like, well, how can I relax and how can I calm down in this time? But it's sort of it's like when you're I don't know, I think they say this when, you're going to go skydiving or you're going to do something, one of those extreme sports where you say, hey, if something's about to happen, like you really need to calm down because, elevating yourself like in this particular crisis will just sort of make it worse. And I think you hit on a really good point about not forcing yourself to be positive, but like actively doing things to put yourself in situations where you can be in a more positive mindset. Like for me, I know this intuitively, but then here I am, like, for hours, like at night, reading the news and like reading comments and like, oh, I'm gonna go to Reddit and like gonna see what these racist people are doing. Like, I don't know, like I like sometimes it's like you said before, it's like there's oftentimes this propensity to want to do messy things, and believe me, I have very much indulged in that, but I need to have that reminder often because I grew up as an artist and I was always into visual arts, and that's something that has always been a part of my life. I used to paint, I used to sculpt, and in the last 5 years, I think everything going on in the world basically, it's just hard to focus, and I've had to realize that, like, hey, like you said, now is the time where I should have my guitar. Like I picked it up and I was like, let me go ahead and do that. And picking up these old passions and hobbies that you used to have and realizing like, hey, that's still me. Like I'm still the person who really likes coloring, and I still I'm the person who likes to just get lost and read a book or listen to an album. And so I love that you're giving that advice that we, in the face of all of this, it still is very much important to take that step. But I think going in sort of the opposite direction, another topic you and I have spoken about recently is grief and loss, especially you're, mentioning this a little bit earlier. And we've all seen the numbers and, the death tolls on the news, and we've all gotten to this point where a lot of Americans have either experienced loss within their own circle of family and friends, or they know somebody who has lost a loved one. What would you say to people whose lives have been fundamentally changed by COVID-19? And how do you balance having, these personal tragedies going on while we're in this global tragedy?
Well, it's crazy because I feel like I start everything with it's crazy. No, it's I've actually my best friend's uncle passed away during all of this, and he was an amazing man, and she wasn't able to go to his funeral. And I actually would have been there as well, if it wasn't a pandemic. So it's been, those are the days that are harder than others. And before I forget, I want to touch on something that you said, because that's part of that is the basis of coaching yourself, is that every day you have to remind yourself of these things. Mm-hmm. Every day you have to question yourself. Every day you have to say, why am I doing that? Am I doing this for a good reason? Am I doing this to be petty? Like, what are my motives in this? Mm-hmm. What is my impact versus my intent? Mm-hmm. And I think during the times when you're losing your loved ones, you have to focus on the fact that you still have to pull through. Mm-hmm. One of the main things I always say is that we're always going through a storm. And I didn't make that up. I got that from my reverend, so I don't want to take credit for that. But he basically was saying, and I live by this, we are always going through a storm. We're either in a storm, or we're coming out of the storm, or we're getting ready to head into one. And what I remind people is that we always come out of it. Like, don't forget, you come out of it. And the thing is, you have to come out of it learning from that storm, learning a lesson from that. So one thing I did with my best friend is, I gave her space, because even though we're all at home, I think people are even more busy because you're catching up with people. If you're able to, you're Zooming this person, you're Zooming this group, you're doing that. And so, one, I wanted her to know, one, she knew that I was there regardless. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was a given, but I made sure, to say that also. But also just give her space, let her talk to the people that she needs to talk to, and also let her know that when she needed me, when she felt like she couldn't have another conversation with anyone, when she needed a voice, when she needed a word, I was there. All she had to do was send a text, and I was there. She knew that I would be there physically with her if it wasn't for this. Um, so, and she did the same for me because, I
Mm-hmm.
loved her uncle. I love her family, just like they're my family as well. So I know that everyone isn't blessed to have people in their life who are a great support system. But if you do have someone in your life that you can lean on, now more than ever is the time to not live in this bubble of I have to do it by myself and I'm alone and I'm strong. And it's like, okay, you're strong, but we all need someone. So now more than ever is time to like, and I'm not saying tap on the shoulder of the friend that's the pettiest. I'm saying tap on the shoulder, I mean, real talk, like tap on the shoulder of the friend who, maybe you don't talk to all the time because they're too honest for you,
Mm-hmm.
but like these are the moments where you need people who are going to pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I just tried to do with my friend, is just pour into her when she needed me and kind of just, step back, like always checking on her, definitely, but giving her space and time to breathe too, because in these moments, especially now, it's like you can't be with your loved ones. You don't even get to hold their hand. Like, it was a very traumatic experience for me when my grandmother passed because we were all in the hospital with her. But I'm also so thankful that we were all able to be with her, be able to touch her, talk to her, hold her hand. And it's like, if I couldn't do that, I'd be devastated. So, just in me knowing that and trying to understand that, I just kept being a voice for her. And I recommend that people just be a voice for their loved ones. And even if it's a family member that you're not necessarily close to, now is the time to build bridges as well. And I'm not saying that every bridge can be built,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying that there's no time like the present to try, to be some bit of happiness for someone. I also suggest listening to you again. I'm really big on watching things that are funny, that'll make you laugh, and those are the things that I did for my best friend as well. um Sharing the jokes that we laugh about to ourselves in group text, making her laugh, which in turn made her cousin laugh, which made me happy. So it's like it's a snowball effect, like giving joy to someone else and receiving it in return. It helped uplift me while I was helping to uplift them. So I just recommend people, lean on their support system and be a support system for someone. And with that said, don't expect it in return. I think a lot of people do things for people because they want to get it back. And
Mm-hmm.
the minute they don't feel like they've gotten it back, then they resort to being like terrible people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, then you really didn't want to help someone in the first place. You wanted to receive something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you have to really, and it goes into just being honest with yourself. You really have to remove all of the malice from your thought process if you have any. And you definitely have to do things with an open heart, and you have to do things without the desire to receive anything in return. During this time, especially, we have to help each other without expecting something in return.
That is 100% right. I mean, um, I was actually in a very uh, in a situation sort of like that. My really good friend who had been an admin on the LLAG community for years had reached out and let me know that some of the family members in his house were sick, and he lives in New York, so it's like obviously that is like the hotbed of where a lot of this is going
Mm-hmm.
on. And his uncle had passed away, and I've been really close with this friend for years, but um, you know I saw this as an opportunity. Well, not necessarily an opportunity, but like as a moment for me to really reach out and say, hey, like I normally don't talk to this person, and I'm normally very busy on social media anyways, but like I needed to be there, and I let them know like, hey, if you need to talk about anything, if you need to like, rant or say some bullshit thing or whatever, like to get something off your chest. Because I've experienced a death in the family, like when I was in high school, and I knew that one of the most important things for me in being able to get over that was to just actually talk. Unfortunately at the time I didn't have anyone to talk, so that's why I went into writing. But like you said, you really need to pour into people, and it's a snowball. I think as long as you leave your blinkers on and let people know like, hey, by the way, I'm here, like if you need me you can message me. Because even just putting that out there into the world, like people will be surprised how many of your friends needed that, and they've been like, oh my gosh, thank you, like no one else reached out to me. And I think we just sometimes have this perception that because we're on social media that everyone is just talking and everyone's communicating, but it isn't always that case.